Hey, everybody. Welcome to the New to Coaching group tonight. I have Casey Watts with me. Oh, she's over there. And we are talking about how to nail your instructional coaching interview. So if you are coming into this now live, then drop us and say hi and tell us where you're coming in from and tell us if you are doing an interview upcoming soon. And also, if you are on replay, drop us a hashtag replay because we know a lot of you will be watching this on replay, even as we have new members coming into the group. So let me just give you a quick overview. If you are new to the group, we have had so many new members come into the group lately. This is the New to Coaching group, and it is where you can learn how to transition from classroom to coaching. And I started this group over 3 years ago now, and it has grown to over 7,000 members. Casey has been a member like from the beginning. She's been hanging out with me. And so one of the things that happens is when new members come into the group, I always try and connect with them in a DM. So if you're a new member, definitely drop us a hashtag new member so we can see you. We're waiting for your comments to come in. So be sure to say hi. And I connect with members in DMs. And one of the things that we've seen posts about in the group, and I've seen in several DMs, even just today, question that we have a lot of teachers coming into the group who are looking to become instructional coaches, or teachers who have been tapped on the shoulder. I always call this the little tap, tap, tap from administration that says like, hey, we want you to apply for this instructional coaching position. And it sometimes comes as a surprise that you would be like, asked to apply, but you're really an amazing runner teacher and you would be a great fit. So it's really common for new people who are new members who are coming into the group to be looking to transition to coaching. And so this is a great place for you to be. And tonight we're going to be talking all about how to prepare for your interview and giving you all sorts of tips and strategies. So Casey Watts is going to introduce herself and she's going to take it and share with us some of these amazing strategies that she has. You're going to have to tell us a little bit about like your interview background that you were telling me.
Yeah.
So many, how you are like such an interview guru.
So I am Casey Watts, and I'm an impact coach and consultant alongside my day-to-day work as an instructional coach in my district. And I have to tell you that in the beginning of my journey of interviewing, I have always loved interviews. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just like this challenge. And I've always been the kind of person, I'm going to be really honest with you guys and vulnerable and just hear me out. But it's kind of like dating. Like, I want you to want me, but I don't really want you. You know, like I've had some of those jobs where I'm like, oh, I'm going to interview because I really want you to hire me, but I really don't want to work here just because I love interviews that much. I think it's my 3 coming out, right? Like my Enneagram 3, it's extreme when I get ready for interviews. But about 15 years ago, probably about 13 to 15 years ago, I found a school that I was like, this is the school that I have to work at. And I went to interview. And the first year that I went to interview, I was asked lots of really great questions. And I found myself fumbling because I wasn't prepared for that interview. I'm going to tell you, even one of the questions that was asked was, what is a professional book that you are reading right now? And I was like, whoa, this school's legit. Like they're asking me about professional reads and I'm not reading anything right now. Yeah. And so in my panic, instead of just being vulnerable and honest about that, what I did instead was I said, so I go to a bookstore sometimes and I'll sit on the end of the aisle and pull out a book and read it. And I read a book about this one thing recently, and it was like, what am I, your brain's saying like, stop talking, stop. But your mouth is like, it's continuing to talk. And the other harsh part about that is it wasn't just me interviewing. It was several people interviewing. So they had 3 people answering questions at the same time.
That is so awkward.
It was intense. So I left that interview. And of course, I did not get that job. But I went again the next year. But here's what's different about the next year. The next year that I went in, I had a coach. I had someone who coached me through, here's what they might ask, here's how you might respond, but even more than that, like, let's really dig deep and to understand like what the hang up is for you in interviews so you can work past it. Because I think so often we think about interviews is I got to know my stuff, but really so much of it is I got to know how to present myself and know what my triggers are so that I can combat those and have a successful interview. So since then, since that 15 years ago at that job, I have been in countless interviews myself and for multiple different positions. I mean,
yes, even last year,
even last year,
I think 3 different positions.
Yes. And I love it. I love every bit of it, but that's not the only thing.
You interview just to interview.
I think I do. It's sad. I probably need to stop. But I also love being the interviewer. Anytime I get a chance to be part of a committee or pull a committee together, I am on it. It's my favorite thing to do because you're really, if you know what you're looking for, you can be really strategic and intentional when you interview other people. And it's the same for the interviewee. If you know what people are looking for, you can be really strategic and mindful about how you approach the interview. So that's what I have to say about that.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's just dive in here. Are we going to start with strategies? Are we going to start with tips? What are we starting with?
So here's what I want to do first.
We have a lot of people who are saying they have interviews coming up, by the way. Woo! We've got Texas. That's Amber.
Hey, Amber.
Circle members. We have an opening for an IC position in my district and applied. Yes, we're going to be helping Amber through her process for sure.
Exciting.
Got Nashville, Southern PA, Texas. We've got a lot of Texas friends, and I think this is Jessica Crawford, but her name's not popping up.
Okay.
Yes,
well, hey, it is you, Jessica. Okay. Hey, summer girl. Oh, somebody looks sleepy.
I know she's been sick today, so we're feeling a little sleepy. So mommy might have to hold her, but you can share with us what you're going to say. You're up.
So we have there are a few things that I want to do actually. Number one, I want to know from you guys who are here with us live tonight, what your primary questions are. Like what comes to mind when you think about interviews? What makes you nervous, anxious? What are your questions? Drop them in the comments and we'll try to address those as they come up and as we have time. I also want you to know that at the end of this live, we are going to have a Padlet with some great resources for you. So I'm going to tell you what the Padlet is going to include. The Padlet is going to include a graphic that gives you 4 major tips that you're going to want to focus on when you're preparing for an interview. That Padlet will also include an interview preparation worksheet to help you go through some of those 4 key concepts.
They love a good worksheet.
I do too. And you know what? You can do it online, digitally, or you can print it out if you're a pen to paper. And then we also have 12 questions that you might be asked in an instructional coaching interview, but they're not in any particular order.
And that's the number one question that we get in the group. What questions do you think they'll ask?
Yes.
So that's really why we decide to do this session, because every year, this time of year, it happens.
Yep.
Somebody drops that question in the group and, it's always very common question. So we want to make sure we have those quick resources and easy share for you. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 12 questions that we are going to give you, you will be asked some variation of those questions. So when you look through them, you're not going to think about them as like a point blank, black and white question that will be asked, but you can think to yourself, what are the variations of this question that could be asked? So are we ready to dig in?
We are.
Ready, Allison?
Okay. I can't wait. Tell me more.
So 4 major things that you want to think about that will help you to stand out are, I'm going to list all 4 and then we're going to go through them.
Okay.
Number 1 is do your homework. Number 2 is know yourself well. Number 3 is focus less on content and more on coaching. And number 4 is rehearse instead of memorize.
Ooh,
yeah.
These are really good.
I'm so excited. Okay. So clearly, I'm so excited. So like Christmas morning. All right. So number 1, do your homework. This is probably one of the most important things you can do before you even begin thinking about the interview itself. You want to do your homework about the school. And as you're doing your homework about the school, you are looking for several different things. You're thinking, what is it that the school is all about? What is their vision, their mission, their core values? You can find all of that for most of the time on their district homepage, right? Or their campus homepage. But you also might take it a step further and you might consider, okay, what is the makeup of this campus? What is the makeup not only of like demographics of students, but what about teachers and administrators? How many teachers are there per grade level? How many teachers are there in the whole school? How many administrators are there? What are their titles? Do they already have instructional coaches? If they do already have instructional coaches, you might want to do a little bit of homework to figure out how do they utilize their instructional coaches right now.
Yeah, especially too, like district level.
Yes.
Because it's a district level position or a building level position. And if they have coaches at the district level, sometimes it's hard to find that information, but the more you can understand what they have put in place for a coaching program in the district,
yes,
can also give you a big picture view versus like just what's happening at that school.
Yes.
So if you are not, most of you are working in the environment where you have the district level and the school-based coaches. So
yeah, and that's a good point because you can, for most districts, you can go to their campus or their site page and look at their Department of Curriculum and Instruction or their Department of Teaching and Learning, and you can see like do they have an instructional coaching program? And they may not have it specifically lined out, but you can get an idea of what their goal is for teaching and learning. Then
and strategic plans too. Sorry, like just mentioning.
Yes.
Yeah, like on that district site, there's also strategic plans that tell you what the district is working on, way bigger than just that one building. And for you to have some awareness of that, if this is not a district that you've been working in and you know what's going on, then knowing what the school and what the district is focusing on, that's why they're hiring a coach, is to get those things moving.
Yep.
So being aware of the bigger district goals is an important piece too, because that's also what the principal is thinking about. Is those bigger district goals, because that's what her boss is telling her she needs to do. Yes. So you kind of got to start thinking bigger, definitely outside of that one building you're applying to.
I love that. I love the idea of like if you're doing your homework, you are widening your lens, right? We're taking an Eagles view perspective of this school. Yep. And with that said, Allison, really you could also, a lot of schools have, or a lot of states have reports for each district in the state that you could look into. So for example, Texas has the TAPR, which is the Texas something performance report.
Yeah.
Academic performance. I should know that because I live in Texas and I look at that.
Okay. These are hard acronyms to remember.
Yeah. All acronyms. We have them all in education. So you can look at that too, to prepare yourself for, how, like, what are the things that they really want to focus on as a district and as a campus? What could be some possible goals? So do your homework. You also want to think about what is the culture right now. Go to their social media pages. That's going to help you decide what they care about and what they want to promote. So go look at their social media pages. Okay.
Number 2.
Our number 2. We're ready for number 2.
Yes, and 2 quick things to keep in mind. Somebody said, are we going to do all 4 now? We are going to do all 4 now. So you're going to get everything right here in this one session. This is a single session, one and done. So if you are wanting to know all the details, stay to the end. We have got everything for you right here.
Yes.
And then later, maybe we can talk about resumes, because Elizabeth Taylor asked about resumes. That's on your list too, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, stay with us if you want to hear about resumes as well.
Okay.
Okay. Number 2 is know yourself.
Yes.
Know
yourself. No, I mean, like really hammering in on the know yourself.
Let's fix it. Know yourself well. But this is huge. I feel like this is like my soapbox about it, but you go first.
Okay, I'll go first and then you tag in, because we both know that knowing yourself matters. I'm going to say almost more than anything else.
Yes.
And I think some people can push back on that, but it's so true. You know that one of the questions they're going to ask is, well, tell us about your strengths and what are your areas of weakness or growth.
Right.
And I heard somebody the other day say, you know, when they ask me that question, I usually say, because they were told in one of their college classes, when you share your weaknesses, you share them basically as strengths. And I was like, no. We're not doing that. I don't know if anybody is an Office fan, but there's an episode where Dwight's doing his own interview or with someone else. No, I think he's doing an interview with a lady, and he's like, and what are my weaknesses? My weaknesses are that my strengths are too good, or, you know, something crazy like that. I care too much. That's a weakness.
Right. And so that actually is one of my weaknesses for real.
That's your 2
I do have an issue with that, but I know why, because I'm a 2 and I know my Enneagram number, and I know how sometimes I can be too empathetic.
Maybe just a little bit. So knowing yourself well. Say that again.
So how do we do this?
Okay.
How do we know yourself well?
I was going to say too, like, this interview is really more about how you fit into the story of the school. And that's one of the things that we have on this graphic, because it's so important. How do you fit into the story of the school? So you want to lead with your own story. What is your why? Why are you coming to this position anyway? And I will tell you, so many people, especially instructional coaches, they lean into, well, I just want to help teachers, or I want to teach teachers what I know. And you're going to want to steer clear of that. Instead, what you're going to want to do is think truly about a deeper, greater why. What is at your core for why you go into education? Because that's not really going to change. You know, like, your why is probably rooted in what you want to do for students, and that will remain the same in an instructional coaching position. But you also want to think about, like, what is your personality type? Lean into your knowledge of what your weaknesses are, but be ready to be vulnerable about that and address it in a way that shows, I know that this is an area that I'm working on, and here's what I do to ensure that that doesn't get in the way of my success or the success of others. You can also think about, like, what is your working genius? Or if you've taken the Myers-Briggs assessment, you can look at those personality types and really highlight some, because those are specific.
Yeah. Like, and actually, I recently took that Myers-Briggs, which this is not one that I have, like, studied deeply. It has a really, really quick report, and it literally has strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
It will take you no less than, 10 minutes to do the test. And then you get this report and you're reading it going, how do they know me so well?
Yeah.
So that one's at 16personalities.com. If someone will put that into the chat for us, like literally the number 16personalities.com, that would be a great quick one. And often some schools who have done personality work will ask you to have that.
Yep.
So it's good to go ahead and do it and know it. Even if they don't ask you for it, you could still bring it up. But one of the things that I think, and I think you're going to get to this a little bit with your next one, so I don't want to jump the gun too much, but when it comes to knowing yourself and your weaknesses, new coaches are usually like, thank you, Michelle, for putting that in. Hi, by the way, come on into our backstage, because you're going to come on screen soon. New coaches are often like, just not feeling very confident about this because they feel like they don't understand the role very well. Mm-hmm. And they often think that their weakness is going to be that they don't have knowledge of the content, or that they haven't taught a grade level. Like, those are the fear things that come up in this coaching thing, is like, oh, I'm about to go start coaching elementary and I've never taught first grade, and that must be my weakness. That really is not your weakness. And we'll talk more about that in number 3. But I think you want to lean into personality weaknesses more, and things that are things that you want to work on personally all the time. Like these are things that you're probably working on at home too. Like I'm really bad at being disciplined about doing the dishes. Like maybe this doesn't come up in the interview, but I just know that I'm bad at discipline with things that are just have to be done every day. I don't have that tenacity.
Yeah.
We talked about, Casey, that's one of the working geniuses is tenacity. I don't have that tenacity. And sometimes I'm bad at finishing. I'm great at starting, but I'm not great at finishing. And that's something that I'm working on and I'm really mindful of. And so by talking about a personality weakness, that really is something deeper than and I don't think it's a good thing for you to go into like, I don't think I know enough, because that is you, and we'll get into that, but that's you not understanding coaching. You not knowing enough content is not a weakness.
Right.
And I'm going to stand really firm on that. Is not a weakness. And we are going to teach you how to not, how to not worry about that here in the group. But I'm getting on a tangent. So what else do we need to do or know ourselves? We've got personality typing tests with the one called Working Genius is at workinggenius.com. It's $25. So it's not free, but it's really good too.
Yeah.
And then there's the Enneagram, which you can also do a free test for. I don't have a link for that one, but there's just some different ways for you to dive into personality typing and really be ready to talk about some of those personality weaknesses rather than the other ones.
Yeah, I actually have, in all of my interviews, when they talk about your strengths, I bring up, for me, usually it's the, my strengths finder.
Oh yeah.
So my top 5 strengths, and my number 1 strength is, I don't want to tell you my top one because I don't like it, but my second one, my second one is futuristic. And so because I know that my strength is to look far into the future, I'm able to envision things and craft a vision. I'm also an inventor. But then I know that one of my areas of growth is tenacity, like you said. So I am great at wondering and coming up with inventions. And I lean into the people that I know that are really strong at tenacity to get certain things accomplished. So that does a couple of different things. They're like, oh, we can see not only how she contributes to our organization, but also that she's willing to lean into other people.
Yeah.
Right? And we say things like, oh, I'm great at teamwork, but we've got to be a little bit more specific about that.
Yes. And when you know your weakness, when you can say, I'm not great at tenacity, then you can also say, what I look for in collaborative partners is somebody who's going to help me get something to the finish line.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's what I need in my life. That's why Casey hangs out.
Yeah, but we probably aren't great for each other.
No, we need Michelle Ruiz for that, who may or may not be here tonight, but she is our tenacity lady. Yeah. She gets us to the finish line.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
Okay, what's our number 3? I got to type that one in.
Number 3 is focus less on content and more on coaching.
Yes. Okay, this is where we were going before.
Yeah, less on content, more on coaching, because you are not most likely you are not interviewing for a content specific role, even if you are. Exactly.
You're still going to work on coaching.
That's right. Yep. So even if you're like, oh, but I'm going to be a literacy coach. Okay, great. And knowing that content is awesome. They're going to ask you some questions about the content, but they're going to ask far more questions of things that relate to coaching itself. So you are thinking about relationships with teachers. You are thinking about how to build relationships.
They're going to ask you that one.
They're going to ask you that. They're going to be asking about what coaching looks like to you. What does your schedule possibly look like? How do you support peers? So and they're
going to ask, how do you handle resistant teachers?
Absolutely. And that's one of the questions that I have listed.
And none of those things have to do with content, friends. Nope. So you have to really be thinking about this world. And just FYI, if you need somewhere to go to get answers to these questions, in New to Coaching Group's a great place. And then the New to Coaching YouTube channel has like video after video after video answering a lot of these questions for you. So if you're ready to deep dive, No, as you were listing those, I was like, I have a video on that, I have a video on that, I have a video on that.
And I know you probably have a video on like core values.
Yeah.
What are your core values as a coach?
Mm-hmm.
And we have this assumption sometimes, I said it earlier, like we think we want to help teachers do better things and you want to give them all of your knowledge. That is your way right now of thinking that you want to support them. But in reality, you're not trying to create more mini-me's. That's not what an instructional role is. What you're doing is seeing those teachers as experts, and you are thinking, what core values do I have as an instructional coach that help me to raise the potential of all of these teachers and thus support our students well?
Yes. And if you have time, like if your interview is not like next week, then the book that you need to grab is The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier, because it will give you this basic idea of coaching that we're talking about. This book is removed from educational coaching necessarily, but it will help you understand what coaching truly is. It's about less advice giving, more listening, and asking questions. And so this book is quick and super easy to read. And it's always the place that I recommend new coaches start. So if you have a little bit of time, that's the book that we always recommend to think about. If you're like, well, how do I start understanding coaching? I don't understand that's a great place to start. And then of course, obviously the videos in the group will get you started as well.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's kind of like the last little piece of that focus less on content, more on coaching. No, just a handful of experts, just a handful. That's all you need. You don't even need to know all there is to know that all of these coaches say, but you want to know just a few experts so you can say, I've started to look into the work of Jim Knight.
Yeah, I would just go with the one. Just make it easy. If you are just walking into that, just start with him. It's enough. I also have a video playlist that is all his videos from his YouTube channel. And he talks about his 7 partnership principles. They are the most fabulous place to start, probably even better than the Coaching Habit book. Go watch Jim Knight's 7 videos about his partnership principles, and you will understand the bigger picture about coaching really quickly. And then you'll be able to say, well, I've looked into the work of Jim Knight and I understand more about partnerships and what coaching is supposed to be like. Just being able to have a little bit of that knowledge to step into is really important. And when they ask you the question about resistant teachers, to be honest, you don't know how you're going to handle resistant teachers if you've never been a coach. That's a really unfair question. For them to ask you, in my personal opinion, but they're going to ask you because they know it's a part of this situation. And so what you want to be thinking about is the answer to how you're going to just work on building relationships with that teacher. And that's the answer to the question. Like, you can't go too much more into it because it really depends on the situation. But relationship building is the basis for all the coaching work that you're doing. So when they ask you questions about, how would you build relationships with teachers? You want to be thinking about natural and organic ways that you would interact with teachers that would build natural and organic, real relationships. And then if you have resistant teachers, they're ones that are harder to break through with and that you have to continue to connect with personally before they're really willing to trust you. So that is a very short version of other videos that you can go watch. But this idea of answering that question, the core answer is relationship building. And that is a personal connection with teachers to win their trust that will help you become someone that they trust and open doors to for coaching.
And listen, there are absolutely going to be questions that you're like, I don't know. I don't know.
You've never done this before.
Right. And your mind might go blank. That's why coaching, like interview coaching, is really important, because we can get down to the deeper level of like, what's going on for you really, and what can you do in those moments when it's like, freak out mode, or I've lost everything in my brain. Because the last thing you want to do is come up with an answer or what you think could be possibly right. Because
that gets us to number 4, which is rehearse instead of memorize, right?
Yes. Number 4 is rehearse instead of memorize. Here's what happens. And I almost was like, ooh, I don't want to give the 12 questions that might be asked, because some of our tendencies is to take the questions and to script out exactly what you would say.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem with that. The problem with scripting out what you can say is, number one, you're most likely not going to bring that with you and say, hold on just a moment, let me look for how I scripted that out in these questions, because I knew you were probably going to ask that. No one would ever do that. But it's going to be a turnoff if you like have it open and you're looking through to see, where is my answer? And if you try to memorize and you have nothing there, your brain is doing too much at once. You're trying to consider what the question is and understand that fully, but your brain is also trying to recall what you memorized, and your brain cannot function well that way.
Yeah. And, and it's hard because you want to feel prepared, but you also want to really try to trust you have so much that you're bringing to the table. And I think this is hard for someone who's applying for a new coaching role, because you don't know what you're bringing. You don't even know what you're really applying for.
Right.
And you only have your teaching experience to lean on. And so, but you have a lot to bring to the table. So going more from like an instinctual kind of gut response is going to be more genuine, and they're going to see you for who you really are. Mm-hmm. If you're memorizing, even if you did a ton of rehearsing, then it still feels like a little bit calculated or robotic. But the more natural you can come into it and more genuine, I know you'll feel nervous, and that's hard, but just trying to share who you are and what you believe about teaching and why you believe that this would be your next step in your career is a part that you can bring in who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that in mind, like the being nervous, your tendencies. So you have to take a moment before you go into the interview and say, what can I rehearse right now to get me through this interview well? For example, I know that sometimes when someone's speaking and asking me a question, I'm not fully attentive to what they're asking. I'm focused on other things. Like I'm focused on what I'm going to say. So I know that probably what I'm going to have to practice or rehearse is, what can I say when I need them to repeat the question? Oh, okay. I know I can say, can I have a moment to think? Or can I have a moment to think while you reread that question for me? And that gives you a little bit of a break, a little bit of time to breathe. I have, as an interviewer, had people who have been extremely vulnerable and honest and paused and said, I need some time to think about that. Is that okay? Absolutely. Take some time to think about it. And then after they've said that, they said, I have to be honest, I'm not quite sure. And that's something I have to lean into other people to learn about, or I would really like to get more information about that. Can I write that down? I paused the interview and I said, I have to share with you how wonderful it was that you just did that. Not just in this interview, but in future interviews, you're going to want to do that again. They need that feedback, and feedback is okay to give to interviewees in the moment, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you might also think about keywords and phrases that you do want to hold on to, something to ground yourself in as you're answering these questions. Like, I know for sure that I want to talk about differentiation. I know for sure that I want to talk about relationships. I know absolutely that I want to talk about Gym Night's impact cycle. Or, Allison, what are some other like keywords or phrases that people could anchor to make them feel a little bit more comfortable and relaxed when they're being asked questions?
Yeah. I mean, I think the partnership principles that Gym Night talks about is just a big one, because it has to do with the idea of building relationships and creating an environment of equality in coaching so that it's not a top-down environment. But I think it's those other components around like just understanding coaching and some of the coaching, language about questioning, listening, non-advice giving,
Yep.
and how you can just really use even the idea of, well, I just would really want to get to know teachers and ask them a lot of questions and help them come to their own conclusions. And listening and getting to know teachers and doing what Sherry St. Clair calls a listening tour. Blanked for a second. Sherry St. Clair calls a listening tour. And so like the different little things that you could be doing to you can have those things kind of written down.
Yeah. The last thing that I have on that little portion that you'll see on the graphic that we have for you on the Padlet is this phrase: think about poise, pace, and presence. Those three things matter. How are you poised? What is the pace of your conversation? And how are you showing them that you are present? Because one of the major things about instructional coaching is that you are present. And they're going to want to see that reflection of you in the interview.
Yeah. I mean, they are wondering too. I think sometimes we don't think about this because we're so used to being a teacher. And even though you're not an administrator as a coach, you're still kind of they're deciding whether or not you would be a good fit on their administrative team.
Yep.
Because you would be sitting at meetings where you would be in meetings with the principal and with the assistant principal. Like they're looking to see if you would be a good fit interacting with them. They want rapport with you. And that is going back to that kind of coming across truly as yourself and natural, because they're wondering if you'd be a good fit on their team. And that's different from hiring a teacher. When they're trying to hire a teacher, they are trying to see like a little bit more about like, yes, culture fit, but qualifications and experience and these types of things. This interview is a little bit more like, do we want this girl on our team or this guy on our team? So just be aware, like that's one of the things they're really trying to get from you, and that the personal connections you make with them are what might win that over.
Yeah. I have to tell you a little story. One time I was interviewing someone with a team of mine, and I think in hindsight, I think she was wanting to come across as really like comfortable. Like, when I come here, I will be comfortable with you. But it was too comfortable, because she was doing that and crossed her leg over like this and like dug in her ear and flicked it. And I was like,
okay, somewhere between those two places. Like, overly professional, no. Sticking your finger in your ear, no.
Land right in the middle, guys. Let's land right in the middle. That's where we want to be.
Oh, okay. Is there more before we bring Michelle on?
Those were the 4 things.
Okay, let's go back to that Padlet for just a second. I'm going to put it back up here. And I did post it in the comments. And on here, we are going to drop some of the resources that we've already mentioned to you that we didn't quite know we were going to share. But things like Jim Knight's partnership principles videos, I'm going to put those on here. Some of my videos that will help you with prepping that are more like just get to know. I have a video series called The 6 Things I Wish I Knew as a New Instructional Coach. Those would help. So those will be on this Padlet. So when you are watching, or if you're catching on replay, go ahead and check that out and you'll find these things over here. So let us introduce our dear friend, Michelle. You're going to let's unmute you. There you are. Can't unmute. There you are. You there? Hi, friend.
Hi.
How are you?
I am all the feels.
All the feels. It's a big day.
It is a big day.
Okay, introduce yourself to everyone so they know a little bit about you, and tell them about your move and your interview. So give them a little backstory, and then we'll talk some more.
Sure. So I'm Michelle, and I am from Chicago suburbs. I'm here now. I am preschool, early childhood instructional coach in a building that specializes in special education, and my background is in dual language Spanish. My family is going to be uprooting, and we are going to be planting new roots in Arizona this summer. and I am going through the interview process now.
Yeah.
Yes, but this process, like, I mean, before we even knew you were moving, we've had some conversations, but then when you knew you were moving, but it still was months away, you've been thinking about this for a while. And a lot of the personality work that we did in the Breakthrough Circle in November and December, we did a deep dive into the Enneagram. We also learned about the Working Genius. Like when we worked through that, that was like deep personality work that now has come out and played a really big role in this whole interview process, like not just in the actual interview, but in your preparation and your response to.
Yeah.
So I've got to have you talk a little bit about that, because I think it is a powerful layer of interview that we don't think about.
Yeah. So when I first met with Casey, we kind of talked about knowing who you are and what are some of those things that make you feel anxious or uncomfortable in interviews, or what are tendencies that you've noticed. And I think going through Enneagram and learning about my Working Genius and just embracing the fact that for years I thought I was a 1, but now I've realized I'm a 9 with a wing 1. Just knowing those tendencies about myself and how I could respond, but pushing through those things and seeing, like, I would rather make peace than go for it. So, but I can go for it when I'm feeling very confident in my 3. So going through that process of, like you were mentioning, the different personality tests, when I learned about Enneagram, I was like, oh, I feel seen. I feel like, oh, that's why I do that, and it's really helping me to understand what is it that brings me joy in my work? What are the things that I love about what I do? And what are those things what are my working geniuses, those strengths that I have, but also those things that like I can do, but they really drain me, and trying to find this balance of putting all those things together in this new opportunity.
Yeah. And also, like, even just understanding where your emotions are coming from in preparation, right before and during and after. Like, a lot of emotions come up around interviewing. There's nervousness, there's worried that you're not going to be like, remember everything, and I feel like that's helped you catch yourself from being overly emotional. I mean, you still have emotions, but you kind of say, like, I know what this is. This is me overthinking it.
I think I'm in that acknowledging stage. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really becoming more hyper aware of, oh, I just did this. And I did this because I'm, in this, in my 9, or I'm in my 3, or just having the vocabulary to be able to verbalize makes such a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that deep work in the Breakthrough Circle was very enlightening for so many members. Okay, so last week, or I was actually thinking, like, it was last week that we got on a call and started talking about prepping you for your interview. So what was most useful for you in that conversation? And then tell us about how you used it in your interview.
Okay. So knowing my tendencies, yes. Casey really reminded me of using those pausing phrases, like, it is okay to pause and have something like, let me think about that. Being able to make those connections of how you were saying different, like a book that I referenced, a podcast that I just listened to, just like showing that little extra inch of like, this is extra work that I'm doing outside of it to learn more about coaching in the process. And then really being able to not memorize, because I'm a memorizer. And so I had like 4 typed out sheets of like every possible question that I could think of before you all are sharing your 12 questions. And so I'm like, have all these questions. I'm like, okay, I cannot memorize these. Let me like condense it down to 1 page. And even this 1 page that I had, I'm like, I probably could have like made it into a half sheet. But just that preparation work and knowing that I'm not going to script my answer, but I just want to be me. Like, that's the most important part. It's me as a person. And I think something that you both spoke to me very much is about, it's not about, now I can't know if I can say it right, but like, is this the best fit for me? Like,
Yeah.
what makes, and this is actually one of the questions that I asked them in my interview. I said, what makes this the best place to work?
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
And I think we caught them off guard because the panel of people were like, let me get my answer ready. They weren't ready for me to prompt them with that sort of question, but I wanted to know, like, if this is the best place for me to work, why? Like, what do you bring to the table for me?
I think sometimes we don't realize how much power we have in the interview process. Like, we think that we're just being interviewed and then they will decide, and then we will just do what they say. Like, I'm sorry, no. Like, maybe you haven't come through into your maturity enough yet. If you are feeling like it's a one-sided thing, you actually hold the power. You are the one who is choosing whether or not you want to work at this place. And this interview is so that you can interview them about what this job is.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because we just don't think about it that way. But the more you can flip the script and realize, like, this is not a high pressure stakes situation because it's really your choice.
Mm-hmm.
If they say no, then okay, you didn't have much of a choice to go with, but you are the one who ultimately chooses if this is the right environment for you. It's not so great when you hear a no, but you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you.
Yeah.
I think that was probably my winning question. Like, overall, I mean, having only 2 years of experience in instructional coaching, and I would say that I have learned so much from participating in the new to coaching group and participating in Breakthrough Circle, but like, yes, I'm getting that awareness of coaching. I don't have content specific to what they were necessarily asking, but going back to that organic approach, like, we're going to build relationships and we're going to do it together. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to lean on my coworkers for that as well. So being real with them.
Yeah. And this is just such a hard place for coaches because they get really stuck in thinking that they don't know enough content to do this job. And it's just not true. So if there's one thing that you can hear from us tonight, if you're prepping for an interview and you are thinking about taking a role, you need to know that coaching is not about content knowledge. And if you think that that makes you not prepared or not ready or not qualified or any kind of fear that's coming up around content knowledge, it's not true. I once coached an AP physics teacher, and I know nothing about AP physics. And we had a fabulous coaching relationship. She brought all the content, and I brought all the expertise about instruction. And that's really what creates the partnership. So just don't allow yourself to get stuck in thinking that that is going to unqualify you for the work.
Yep, absolutely.
So Michelle, you sent me your cover letter and your resume and all the things. So what kind of tips would you say worked for you for that? I don't know. I know you were like really thinking about it. So
I think for my cover letter, Casey, I asked you about this, and she's like, you had told me, you've got 30 seconds to catch their attention, to tell your story in that opening part of your cover letter. And so that's what I did. I was looking at my cover letter from when I first applied to teaching 12 years ago, and it was like a mile long. And I was like, I don't want to read all this either. Like, I don't think that there was anything wrong with making it like short and sweet and to the point. And then that provides a way for them to ask more questions out of you later. And then the same thing with the resume. Allison, you were great with providing me with, example template and things just to go off of. And gave me a chance to reflect on what are all of the different hats I've worn as coach, as teacher, what leadership opportunities have I participated in, and really like build some self-confidence in preparation for the interview to like, hey, this is me. Let me showcase myself. And this is why you want me. Like, but it's also what I want, find a good balance and match.
Yeah, but I think it is a lot about the confidence piece. Like, I think in the coaching situation, a lot of times teachers get tapped on the shoulder and like literally asked to apply. And that leads you to a place of not feeling as confident because you weren't even sure you wanted this job in the first place, but they told you. But then you have the coach who like really did feel like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this work. I'm ready to step out of teaching. In both of those situations, you really have to just realize like, you are qualified for this, or they would not have tapped you on the shoulder. If you got tapped on the shoulder, that's a really big acknowledgement. And if you're trying to step out on your own, then I already know you're qualified because you are a runner who is ready to go and do the next thing. And so this insecurity that might settle on you, I just want to bring you back to a place of realizing like you have a lot to bring to the table. Don't hide it. Don't feel like you can't share it, and realize like you are ready. So Casey, what other tips do you have about resumes or prepping for these like cover letter resume pieces? Because we did have a question about that earlier.
Well, really, probably the number one thing, like Michelle was saying, like for your cover letter, that first couple of sentences is you need to have a trigger there. That's what needs to trigger them to want to know more about you. So start telling your story. And truly, what I can say, and Michelle had a great story. When we first started talking about her interview, one of the things she was talking about is why she wants to why she wanted this position. And the story was beautiful. And I was like, that's what you tell them, because we live and breathe in stories. So just be okay with telling your story and being authentic. With that said, while I'm going to say two things that kind of contradict each other, your resume and cover letter are less important than the actual interaction you have with the people who are interviewing you. However, your cover letter and resume are the things that get you the interview. So think about clarity, think about simplicity, and think about impact. So just consider those things for cover letter and resume, because most likely they're going through several different cover letters, resumes to decide who are we going to interview. And then the interview is where you want to put your time and effort.
Yeah. And I do think like design of resume, it shouldn't be like, woo, like jump off the page at you. But if it looks designed, it's going to stand out more, like literally from the pile. And so if you have not used Canva, then I would just recommend going over to Canva, choosing a resume template, and putting all of your Word document pieces, just copy and paste them over into a Canva template. It's just going to look a little bit more professional. How do you feel about them putting a picture on there?
Well, I was just going to say, I think we used to, even when I was coming out of college, there were pretty strict rules about resumes and cover letters, and it had to have this and it needed to look a certain way. I think we're beyond that.
Yeah.
I think we have moved into such an innovative time that we're looking for people who stand out, who are innovative and creative, and it's okay to push the limits a little bit. Like you said, don't just we want it to still look like a resume, but it's okay to bring your own unique spin to it.
Yeah. And I think clean is the key. Like clean, quickly readable, skimmable, all those things are most important. But I also think if you have a little bit of design element to it, something that is just eye-catching, I think that's great. I think a picture of you is really helpful. And somebody had asked about portfolios. What do you recommend about like having a link to a virtual portfolio? Have you done that? Or
well, we talked about that. Michelle, what did you end
up? No. Tell us what you did, Michelle. You did that. Sorry, I forgot.
Follow up. So I interviewed, and then that next day I sent a thank you email for the opportunity. And I really feel like that's been one of my strong suits in my role. And I wanted to be able to share with them the amount of, I'm not a technology coach, but I feel like I've embraced it and run with it, all the changes and different things that I had made for my district. So I did send them in that email. I said, I also wanted to take this opportunity to share with you a virtual portfolio of mine that can be linked here. And I actually saw when they had opened it, because I had forgotten to like give access to a couple of documents. So I could see that they had opened it up and they were requesting access to my documents.
Yeah.
Or in that like view history. And
Yeah.
What was the format? How did you collect everything?
so everything that I have organized is in my Google site for coaching. And I'm happy to, I can link it in the.
Yeah, we can put it in that Padlet.
Yeah, I can link it in there. And it's just a collection of things that I've used. It's my coaching updates. It's my win of the week that I take and use with my staff. It's, just organizational features. Like, here's where you can access resources for all of the different things that we have, whether it's a building-wide document or whether it's documents I specifically created. It's my virtual space to organize all of the things.
Yeah.
And if you are because you've been an instructional coach, so you have those things.
Yep.
Some people are teachers coming out of the classroom, don't think that you can't put things that you're doing right now into that digital portfolio, because you're doing things, most likely, if you're wanting to step beyond your classroom, you're already doing things that a coach might do.
Yeah.
So just think broadly about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about the things that you do that are, data collection kind of oriented, or like a creative technology integration piece. You're probably doing things above and beyond, even though you don't realize that you are. And so you're like, oh, isn't everybody using this tool every day in their class? No, they're not. So go ahead and share that. I even think something as simple as exit tickets. That was a strategy that I used all the time. If there was a way for me to put that in a portfolio, I would have. So these just strategies that you're using that you would be able to share with teachers. Those are things that you can easily try and at least share in a conversation piece of the interview or in a portfolio if you can. What platform did you use to create the portfolio? She said she used Google Sites, but I also think Padlet is a really great one, because if you create a Padlet, you can put all sorts of links on it. You can do it kind of faster than building a whole site if you don't have one already.
Yeah.
So that would be good too. Also, even pictures of you working with kids, things like that, talking about how you have led and done teacher leadership. If you've presented any sessions at any conferences or even professional development sessions at your school, put one of your PowerPoints on there. Like, what did you present to the school if you did that? So thinking of ways that you can showcase what you can do.
And if you are using Google Suite at all, I mean, you could just drop all of those things into a Google Drive folder and share that Drive folder with them. So then you don't have to worry about formulating or creating some sort of website or space, but they have access to all of those in one spot too.
Yes. So I think there's definitely some easy ways to do that.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, friends out there, if you are still here, which we have several people who are still here, let us know what other questions you have and we will work on answering them for you. We've got one, curious to see a sample of eye-catching resumes. I have one that I can share. I can put that on the Padlet. It's not like I haven't looked at it in a while, but I think it has some eye-catching elements to it. But we also can just point you straight to Canva. So when you are using Canva, if you just use the search bar at the top and type resume, you will get all sorts of templates that you could look at and choose from. And so you don't necessarily have to have seen an instructional coaching one, but just grab one of those templates. So Canva will kind of do the pretty part for you.
Yeah. And I will say, if you guys ever want to shoot us a message, like a Facebook message, and say, hey, I have this question real quick. What can you tell me about this one question? Or, hey, can you just take a glance at this resume? Or do you have a couple? Or what are some specific instructional coaching things I could include? We can easily respond to those Facebook messages.
Yes, absolutely. So we love DMs. We would love to connect with you in a DM. So you can send that as a Facebook DM. And so that's usually a great way to get in touch with us so that we can help you with these things as you have questions. And as you get closer to it, you might have more questions, as you get closer. Okay, a link to the Padlet again. I will put that back up. There you go. Padlet /faithful coaching /interview. Okay, so tell us what is most useful for you tonight as you are listening in here, thinking about this interview that you have coming up, or thinking about a possible desire to want to coach. What kind of things have been helpful for you as you have been listening? Have some links to all those different personality tests. We will link those in the Padlet. We have the link to the coaching habit book. We'll link that in the Padlet. I also have a video where I talk about these 7 questions that you can check out. So, you can do it without buying a book, basically. We've got tons of content for you that is right here available. Oh, by the way, Texas Academic Performance Reports. You did get that right. But thank you to Amber for dropping that for us. So what's most useful for you as you are thinking about this, or if you have any other questions for us, we'll stay on for another minute and see if there's anything else. We would love to hear. So glad you came tonight. So another thing too is recently in the New to Coaching group, I did a big challenge, Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles challenge. And so in that, I taught the organic coaching cycle, which is really a way to naturally and organically kind of start coaching cycles with teachers. So coaching cycles are one of the things that probably will come up in a coaching interview. And if you're not familiar with those, they're basically when you're working one-on-one with a teacher and an ongoing work with her around a student-focused goal. And so I teach that in my Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles challenge, which is also available in the course. It was live sessions, but now it's in my online course. So I'll put that in the Padlet for you too, if you want to grab that online course. Right now it's at a special limited time price. So you can just take a look and see if you think that would be a good fit, but it'll walk you through the entire process from figuring out who you're supposed to start coaching cycles with to how do you start them, and then how do you actually create student-focused goals, have conversations. So it walks you through the whole thing. So that might be helpful for you too if you're just trying to prepare for understanding like what is going on with coaching.
Yeah, and if you are really interested, like you feel like I need a coach and I need someone to do some deeper coaching, you'll see a link on the Padlet to get in touch with me, and you can look into taking next steps for us to partner together so I can coach you through the interview process, very much like I did with Michelle.
Yes. And that is so valuable, getting someone to coach you through it. And I really think it's unique in this situation where you're going from classroom teacher to coach and you really want this totally new job that you don't understand yet. You really would benefit from getting a coach to coach you through this. And even just having that experience of being coached can be something you can talk about the power of coaching and what you've experienced yourself. So really, really think it will be beneficial for you. Okay. Chelsea says, what about those questions you ask the interviewers at the end of the interview, like the one that Michelle was talking about? What else do you have about that?
Asking them what they thought was, what does a successful first year as an instructional coach look like to them?
Yep. It's a good one. Absolutely. I think too, I think we talked about this, Michelle, and you already were thinking, I just want to ask a few questions, like limit yourself to maybe 4, 5 is stretching it, because when you get to the end, they're going to be thinking, okay, either you want this job or you don't, So we have to be really careful about that, about what you ask.
I think it's about clarity. I think you're asking questions to clarify the questions you have about this role and what they think it's going to look like. And in these, this is the weirdest thing, y'all. These coaches, they go through the interview process, they get information at the interview, and they hear nothing. They get hired, but they hear nothing until August. And they're just all summer long, they're just waiting and wondering what is this job, and is anyone going to tell me about it? And trust me, they find us here in the New to Coaching group and we help them.
Yeah.
But the truth is like, you aren't going to get a lot of information from them after the interview. And it's like, what do you mean they're not going to tell me about my job? No, they're not. They don't know what your job is much more than, so asking questions like, what is the vision that you have for this role? How do you envision a coach spending her time? What are the school and district goals that the coach is going to be contributing to? Like, those are some things that you need answers to, because this is your time to get it. Because until you meet with your principal, which is going to be a lot later, you're going to feel like you need answers to these questions. So when you ask those two, take some notes and write some things down about that vision, because it may be the thing that you end up building the whole coaching program around, is that thing they told you in the interview.
And you can ask that.
Yeah.
I think everything that you have put on your 12 questions are things that we had talked about either in the preparation or during the interview process. So for me, it was so incredibly helpful to go from my coaching role where I am now, when I got tapped on the shoulder, and I was like, yes, I'll do it, to now actually interviewing and having it be my first interview in 12 years to feel more knowledgeable and confident and going through the process.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Amber said, and then we'll sign off here. Thank you. Number 2, knowing yourself well and being able to discuss my why on a deeper level is very helpful. But overall, everything was super helpful, and she will be reaching out soon. So we're so excited that you are going to be hanging with us, and we're going to be helping you through this process, Amber. We cannot wait. So ladies and gents, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We are so appreciative, and we hope that you will come and hang out in the New to Coaching group some more. You'll follow up with this Padlet, check out all these resources, follow up with me and Casey or even Michelle, and ask us, and we will help you. We are here for you. Tag us in a post. If you have a question, post it in the New to Coaching group and then tag us, and we will get back to you in the comments. Like, that's really us. We really like hanging out with you. So post these things, ask us your questions. Let us help you through the process. We're here for you through it all. Okay. And we'll see y'all next time we go live. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.